why was Blizzard so convinced that people didn't necessarily want to play classic WoW again? Like like, you know, I don't want to say that you think you do, but you don't. There's a classic phrase. I'm not trying to bait
I was on
anything.
stage for that conversation. It was it was an immense amount of work for Blizzard. The way the data was structured at the time was there could only be like one set of data for Warcraft, and there was no concept of branching it off to be like, well, this is the older version of the warrior. It was just like, well, once you change the damage immortal strike, it's changed. Like there's no sense of versioning. Like, why would we have needed that? All we needed was, let's push the next patch to players. They don't have it yet. And so there was this concern that if we went back and did all of that engineering work, which literally was months of work, that it would be a novelty, that players would play it for like a few hours, be like, yeah, that was cool. Okay, back to retail. And I think that was the genesis of the think you do of like, yeah, it sounds cool, but you're going to get in there and remember, oh yeah, I have to have ammo. Well, that wasn't fun. Or, oh, I'm dying all the time. That wasn't fun. If they could have trivially flipped the switch, I think they would have done it because there would have been no cost to it. It was the huge investment of time. And I know players could say like, oh, Blizzard has so much money. Why don't they want to spend it? But it's really about the opportunity cost. If you have one of your best engineers doing nothing but making a versioning system for the data, they're not adding new features or fixing bugs or that sort of thing.
I think that's what's so important to call out. Having also worked in a company that does an MMORPG, it's not as black and white as players often like to see. Like the opportunity cost is a really good point.
Yeah.
Like if you're putting your best engineer on that, you're not going to be able to build new things.
But I do agree that Blizzard got it wrong. Like clearly Classic was a smart idea. It has legs, the combination of nostalgia for those of us who were there. And then there's millions of players who missed it. Like all of China missed that experience because by the time WoW launched in China, you know, they quickly got caught up to, I think it was Wrath of the Lich King at the time. So they never really experienced vanilla the way we did in the West.
Was there ever an urge or idea to go back and just add more content to Classic? Because there are so many zones and areas that just are just kind of empty, or just kind of, they were meant to be the Dragon Isles, for instance, or they were meant to be something, or there were areas that were kind of pre-Outland, but like not Outland, because then the development team broke the two expansions apart. Was there ever discussion about just wanting to add more?
Oh, for sure. And to be fair, some was added over time. You would see like holidays or new, you know, very simple quests added. But when we hit Cataclysm, that was the time when we felt like, gosh, the older content is so old. Let's go back and fix it up. And the idea originally was, let's look for places that are very empty, you know, that don't have anything there. There was nothing in like Deadwind Pass, I think, and a few other zones like that. And let's go fix the areas that are kind of weak. It spiraled out of control to just a complete revamp of some of these zones. And we did so much of that we kind of ran out of time to really do it right. We originally, the way we talked about it is we had this big map of Azeroth, and there were green zones, yellow zones, and red zones. The red zones were like a total redo, like Ashara. And the green zones were like, they're mostly good. Let's just maybe do a couple of tweaks there. But by the end of Cataclysm, they had essentially all become red zones. Like every quest chain had been completely redone, and almost none of the original content remained. And I think that was a mistake. That was scope creep on our part, and we should have had a little more, I guess, resilience to the idea that we have to touch everything.
Was it pressure from behalf of what was it pressure coming from you guys internally, or was this the things that players were telling you? Because I can imagine there's a level of perfectionism, like especially with an idea as kind of, I don't want to say crazy, but Cataclysm was nuts. Like, well, let's just redo the entire world. Let's break it apart. Let's change. For me, it was traumatic because I loved vanilla WoW. I loved all the zones. I had so many memories there, and I remember, I think it was 2010. Like at first I remember watching the trailer and like hearing about the expansion. I thought this is the most amazing thing ever. And then I remember I jumped into the game and like, this isn't the same place I remember. Like it was cool, but something was lost. So I think going back to what I was saying just now, Was there it sounds like you guys were creating the pressure on yourselves to perfect everything and kind of keep up to the hype that
Yeah.
the world was kind of seeing you as.
It was all internal. It was this just sadness that, as I said, the philosophy at the time was when a new expansion comes out, you just jump to that expansion. And so those older WoW zones were just dead, particularly the higher level ones, because as players got to like level 50, 55, they would just jump to Burning Crusade at that point and never finish the Winter Springs, the Silithus, the like high level vanilla zones. Um, and so we're like, gosh, we have all this wasted content. Can't we figure out a way to reuse it? I just think the goal was noble and the solution we came up with was not effective. In retrospect, I think having classic was a much more effective way to get some use out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the remixes they've done where they've just kind of added weird tweaks to like make everything feel new again, because you can't just remember where everything was. Everything's changed.
Do you feel like the team is in a bit of a pickle now? The WoW team, because of the fragmentation of the experience. You've got anniversary servers, classic servers, retail servers, hardcore servers. Like it just feels like, what is the identity for WoW moving forward? And does that mean classic plus? Because I think that's the question that everyone's asking themselves: is where does the game go now?
Yeah, as someone like I'm not actively playing, and someone who's not engaged, it seems very confusing of like, what of the 30 versions of WoW are you talking about? It's possible that active players don't feel that way. Like it all makes sense to them in the same way you could jump into Roblox and play a bunch of different games and that's not confusing to you. Um, I do think it probably creates, again, an opportunity cost. I know that the WoW team has had to get enormous in order to service all of these different aspects of the game. And now they run into conundrums like, well, we did a Mista Pandaria remix. Do we now do a Mista Pandaria classic at almost the same time? Is that strange? Yeah, I don't know. I've thought a little bit about like, if that was my problem to fix, what would I do? But for all I know, they don't, internally, maybe they don't think it's a problem.